My father went bankrupt. He hastily married me off to a rich second-generation heir. The rich second-generation heir had a first love, leaving me to live like a widow with a pile of money. Great, after getting enough money, I took the initiative to step aside. 1 year later, he called me when he was drunk. Are you still not getting married because you're waiting for me? Well, I'll take a bit of a loss. Let's get back together. I felt quite embarrassed. I'd like to, but I'm currently in confinement. He panicked. I got married to Xavier. There was no wedding ceremony, no betrothal gifts. I just married myself off. On our wedding night, he didn't come home until midnight after drinking with his friends. You're back. I scurried over to help him. When he saw me, his eyes flickered. The next second, he lowered his head and kissed me. I was a bit resistant, but I didn't dodge. I even took the initiative to hook my arms around his neck and smiled sweetly. Did you transfer the money to my father? His movements froze, and he pushed me away. Selena, are you really that worthless? I stood there, stunned. My heart stung for a moment, but it only took a second for me to adjust my emotions. I think I'm quite valuable. 30 million yuan. I could never earn that much in my lifetime. Fine, then you can live as a widow with your 30 million for the rest of your life. He lost his interest, yanked off his tie and threw it on the ground, then went to the bathroom alone. I sighed, picked up the clothes he had dropped along the way, threw them into the washing machine, and then went back to my own room to sleep. My father ran a small company, but recently the company was in crisis. We found Xavier because my grandfather had saved his grandfather's life. His grandfather proposed marriage, and our family was overjoyed. So, I was sold for 30 million yuan. Before that, I had vaguely heard rumors about Xavier. When he was in school, he was the school bully. After entering society, he was the feared and domineering CEO. There were always women around him, but he never got involved with any of them. Once you get married, just turn a blind eye and do your duty as a wife. This was what my mother had repeatedly instructed me, and I dared not forget it. So, even though on our wedding night, there was a strong scent of perfume on him when he hugged me just now, I didn't say much. When it was 12 o'clock and he didn't enter my room, I let out a sigh of relief. A man who had eaten outside probably wouldn't want an extra meal when he got home. I took out my phone. My WeChat was full of wedding congratulations from everyone. Thinking about the scene just now, I just felt it was ironic. Scrolling down, when I saw a familiar name, my heart couldn't help but ache a little. You still love me, right? You're definitely not the kind of woman who only cares about money. It was Ryan. He was my senior and also my ex-boyfriend. The message he sent was too long and too childish. I lost patience and just deleted it directly, then blocked him. The next morning, I prepared breakfast and waited for Xavier to get up. He didn't get up until 10 o'clock in the morning, lazily. I stood beside him, squeezed the toothpaste for him, and prepared the wash basin with water for him. Quietly, I helped him comb his hair. He was a bit stunned and looked at me with a strange look in his eyes. Being so attentive early in the morning. What do you want now? There was sarcasm in his tone. It didn't matter. I gave him a sweet smile. We're going to your grandfather's house. Did you forget? He stared at me for a moment, expressionless. When it comes to pleasing the elders, you really spare no effort. If you like, I can please you too. I took a deep breath, hesitated, and then reached out to button up his shirt. He stood there without moving, just looking at me from the corner of his eye. The custom-made shirt had small buttonholes. Coupled with him staring at me like that, my hands were shaking with nervousness. A bit lower. It's a bit difficult, I said softly. Because of the nervousness, there was a hint of coquettishness in my tone. He lowered his head, cornered me, and said, "Do you know what it means to be coquettish with a man early in the morning?" I don't know. I pretended to be stupid. He stared at me without speaking. His warm breath was so close that it quickly made me feel hot. Just as I closed my eyes, I heard a sentence in my ear. Looking like you do now, you might as well have the words, "I want money," written all over your face. My heart skipped a beat. I felt humiliated, and my blood pressure instantly rose, but I forced myself to hold it back. Will you give it then? I frivolously put my arms around his waist. Honey. His Adam's apple bobbed. He was stunned for a moment, then pushed me away in disgust. You really think you're made of gold? Do you expect to be paid just for being touched, then try touching me? I still greeted him with a smile. I think it's dirty. He probably got tired of it. He snorted coldly, pushed me away, and walked straight out. Watching him leave, I finally let out a sigh of relief. I could understand that Xavier hated me. I heard that he used to have a fiancée, and because of me, she was forcibly separated from him by his family. He left early and came back late every day. He didn't even step into my room, which really made me live like a widow. But it didn't matter. I was quite open-minded. Love and money, you have to hold on to at least one of them. Since it was impossible to get love, then I'd go all out to make money. Someday when he got tired of it and his family compromised, the most likely outcome for them would be divorce. When I came back from Xavier's grandfather's house with Xavier, before the car even stopped, I saw his former fiancée, Chloe. She was wearing a white dress, standing in the wind. The wind blew her long hair. With red lips and white teeth, she looked so pitiful. Chloe. When Xavier saw Chloe, there was a hint of panic in his eyes. He immediately shook off my hand that was holding his arm. The little girl looked at me, then at Xavier, and her eyes immediately filled with tears. Brother Xavier, he doesn't want me anymore. That one sentence left me stunned. What did she mean by he didn't want her anymore? I looked at Xavier in front of me. I didn't expect that the usually decisive second young master Xia would actually be such a bootlicker. Let's go inside and talk. It's windy outside. I pushed open the door to let them in. The girl was obviously hostile towards me. It didn't matter. I consciously left the living room for them to catch up on old times and went back to my room. I don't know how long they talked. When I woke up from a nap, there was no one in the living room. According to the maid, Xavier had carried the little girl out. The little girl might have caught a cold and fainted, young master. Okay, I know. That night, I didn't eat much. I had no appetite. I took out my phone and repeatedly counted the zeros at the end of my bank card balance, but still felt restless. That day, Xavier didn't come home all night. I put on high heels and a small camisole and went straight to the bar. In the bar, my best friend Vivian had been waiting for a long time. Not being the young mistress of a prominent family anymore? Coming here to get drunk? She looked at me and teased. I am. I've been smiling until my face is stiff every day. Making money isn't easy. Ha ha ha, she hugged me and giggled. True. Although that Xavier is quite handsome, you'd get tired of looking at him every day. Do you still have any contact with that Ryan? She asked me. No contact. I took a sip of wine. You used to be crazy about him. It was known throughout the school. You finally got together, and now you just married someone else. I was silent for a moment. His mother came to see me. Huh? What did she want? She offered me 5 million yuan to leave him. Seeing the shock on Vivian's face, I couldn't help but laugh. You really watch too much TV. She didn't give me a single cent. She just said that my father went bankrupt and that I should be aware that if outsiders knew about my relationship with Ryan, it would harm their family's business. Damn, she's really sick. What does your father's bankruptcy have to do with you dating him? Vivian was indignant on my behalf. It has a lot to do with it. Look, except for Xavier's family, who is powerful enough to marry me? I took a sip of wine and continued. I blocked him. Let's not talk about it. Fine, no men tonight. Just look at the handsome guys. So my good sister added the WeChat of 10 handsome guys for me within half an hour. In the latter half of the night, I couldn't hold my liquor anymore. A handsome guy took a taxi to send me home. I staggered and went to turn on the light. As a result, before I even touched the switch, a voice came from the living room. Had a great time, huh? Finally decided to come home? I looked in the direction of the voice. In the darkness, there was a person sitting on the sofa, staring at me fixedly. Xavier? My heart skipped a beat. I told myself not to panic, but when I was changing my shoes, I still couldn't help my hands from shaking. Because of my unsteady center of gravity, when I walked over to apologize, I suddenly fell onto his lap. It could be said that the image of a virtuous, gentle, and noble lady that I had carefully crafted was completely gone tonight. He looked down at me with disgust. Selena, when you married into our family, your father said you were gentle, generous, and extremely virtuous. He glanced at the watch on his wrist. Would an extremely virtuous person go clubbing until 5 in the morning? I begged him to stop talking. What right do you have to criticize me? I suddenly started crying in a melodramatic way. Didn't you also go out with that white lotus of yours, being all lovey-dovey until now before coming back? Probably not expecting me to cry, he was originally going to scold me a few more words, but suddenly lost his composure. To put on a full show, I simply climbed onto him and started crying loudly, "Get off me." He reprimanded me in a low voice. But I refused. I even reached out and hooked my arms around his neck. Do you know how sad it is for me to watch you like her every day? Do you know how scared I am to sleep alone every night in this big house? With me on top of him, afraid that I would do something even crazier, he stretched his neck to avoid my lips. I think you're even scarier now. He reached out to block me and used his other hand to hold down my fidgeting hands. Am I that scary? Don't you like me? So you really don't like me. I was acting so realistically that my nose started running, and then I simply wiped it all on him. He was a germaphobe, and his face turned terrifyingly dark. Just then, my phone suddenly rang. The ringtone was so abrupt that he impatiently picked it up. Hello? Did you get home? I was a bit worried since you didn't reply to my WeChat. The man's voice echoed in the quiet living room. Xavier's expression couldn't have been worse. It was the man who had sent me home just now. Damn it. I panicked, completely. Seeing that Xavier was about to lose his temper and start swearing, I had a brain fart and just kissed him directly. He probably didn't expect it and didn't even have time to push me away. I kissed him aggressively until finally, he almost gave up resisting. Ouch. He touched the back of my head and pushed me away. There was a faint salty taste in my mouth. I seemed to have bitten him until he bled. Go take a bath. He stood up and dragged me to the bathroom. If you ever dare to go out and get drunk like this again, I'll... Before he could finish, I suddenly vomited all over his chest. It was obvious that he was devastated because later he asked the maid to take all his clothes and throw them away. He stared at me for a moment at the door and then reluctantly closed it. I stood alone in the bathroom, my heart beating so fast that I could hear its violent thumping. 07 the next day, when I woke up, it was already afternoon, and Xavier was gone. According to the maid, the liquor cabinet had been emptied overnight. He had been on a business trip for the next few days. I seriously suspected that he was avoiding me. TSK, such a coward. I wasn't idle either. In order to keep in touch with him at all times, I took his supplementary credit card and went to the mall to buy handbags. Vivian and I walked arm in arm, happily shopping. She was so excited when she heard about my drunken antics that night that she clapped her hands in approval. Awesome. That kind of scumbag deserved to have you vomit all over him. Why didn't you vomit in his mouth when you were kissing him? Me. Isn't that disgusting? The kiss was an accident. Now that I think about it, it was the first time I had kissed a man so passionately. Whenever I think of him saying ouch softly, my heart still skips a beat. We were chatting and laughing as we walked into the luxury store, and then we saw Chloe. We looked at each other, and both of us were stunned. She works here? Quite ambitious. My current role really resembled that of a malicious female supporting character, who had forcibly broken up a pair of ill-fated lovers. I sighed and walked in. Chloe took the initiative to walk towards me. Miss Selena, what kind of bags would you like to see? I'll take a look at the ones you recommend. Our tastes are quite similar. I smiled politely at her. She twisted her fingers, looking a bit nervous instead. After a while, she brought over several bags. When she bent down, her collar opened slightly, and I couldn't avoid seeing the hickey on her neck. My heart tightened, and there was a turmoil inside me, but I still maintained a smile on the surface. Damn it, she really had good taste. I liked every single bag. So difficult to choose. I tried on each bag one by one in front of the mirror. If Miss Selena likes them, you can take them all. The store manager also came over and praised me vigorously. Yes, each one looks great on you. The salespeople nearby also chimed in. No, I have to ask my husband. Things should be practical, not extravagant. After saying that, I dialed Xavier's number right in front of everyone. Chloe stood aside, her face looking worse and worse. Honey. What new trick are you playing? Honey, I've fallen in love with several bags. It's so hard to choose. Are you free to help me pick one, okay? Selena, I'm in a meeting. Oh, take them all? That doesn't seem right, but since you said so, I guess I'll have to. Love you, honey. I said it all in one breath and hung up the phone before he could scold me. Can I pay with this card? I took the card out of my bag and handed it to Chloe. Yes, you can. She bit her lip and took the card to swipe it. Vivian next to me was stunned by my crazy move. When did you start with this? What do you mean? Showing off, flaunting your love. I had 3 black lines on my forehead and said in a low voice, she's Xavier's first love. Did you see the hickey on her neck? Bitten by Xavier. Vivian almost jumped up. How can you stand this? What else can I do? Go and scold her like a shrew? It would be beneath my dignity. Vivian and I were about to walk out of the store with the bags. Chloe saw us off all the way to the door. Miss Selena. She hesitated and called out to me. I stopped. You really don't have to do this. I never accepted Brother Xie's affection. In an instant, my scalp tingled, and my arrogant attitude just died down. She meant that there was no need to compete with me at all. She didn't even have to do anything, and Xavier would run over to fawn on her. Sounding so nice. Then stay away from other people's husbands. If you're really that bored, go work in a screw factory. Vivian directly snapped back at her. I didn't. Chloe was extremely aggrieved and ran back crying. Vivian's retort was great, but I just couldn't be happy no matter what. This Chloe is such a green tea bitch. Are you just going to watch her take your place? Xavier likes her. What can I do? Strike first and gain an advantage. Secure your position as the legitimate wife with a child. Do you think this is like the emperor choosing concubines? I was speechless for a moment. Is your husband on a business trip? Yes. How did you know? I just heard the salesperson say that Chloe is going to take a few days off to visit her boyfriend. Damn it. When I got home, I clenched my little fists, feeling both sad and angry. Xavier, who I hadn't heard from in days, called me on his own initiative. So, what new trick were you playing during the day? My heart tightened. Sure enough, did Chloe go and complain to him? Was he going to defend Chloe? Nothing. I'm just not used to it when you're not here. There are no clothes to wash, no one to dirty the floor after I mop it, and no one to eat the breakfast I cook. And? He was clearly unmoved by my attempt to show my affection, and? I had to pull out my trump card. I missed you. He was silent for a moment on the other end of the phone and then resumed his normal tone. Selena, don't you blush when you tell lies? Damn it, was it that obvious? Your grandfather said you're too busy and not in good health, so he asked me to go and take care of you. I changed my approach. You always bring up the old man. Come on, what do you want this time? Weren't the bags you bought today enough? He was so annoying. None of my little thoughts could escape his notice. Ask Secretary Chui to book a plane ticket for me. I want to go and see you. I'm here for work. What are you coming for? Of course to take care of you. Feeling that this reason wasn't very convincing, I added, Xavier, we haven't seen each other for 360 hours. I started being sentimental, using the pity ploy. Anyway, I definitely couldn't let Chloe succeed. I had to go there and secure my position as the legitimate wife. I thought he would be moved by me, but instead, he coldly said, when we were at home for a month, did we even talk to each other? I was heartbroken, but I also knew he was right. It had been 2 months since we got married, and we really hadn't said more than a few words to each other. In fact, I hardly ever saw him. Living like a widow, I get it, alright, I'm still in a meeting. Then, he hung up the phone mercilessly. Scumbag, was he going to fly away with his first love now? I copied on the love of the lotus, while persuading myself to be more open-minded. In the end, I burned the book and booked a flight to go there early the next morning. When I landed, I first went to a breakfast shop and bought a delicate breakfast for Xavier, his secretary, and his assistant. Then, in the taxi, I carefully did my makeup and put on some bright orange blush to look energetic. Vivian messaged me on WeChat, "Did you really go? To catch him cheating?" "Pa, it's to check up on him." I carried my Hermes bag and walked on my 10-centimeter high heels, arriving exactly at 8 o'clock in front of Xavier's room door. Just as I was about to raise my hand to knock, a voice suddenly came from inside, "Brother Xavier, thank you. I don't know what I would have done without you." I was very familiar with this voice. I gasped in shock. To maintain my dignity, I stood at the door for 5 minutes before I started knocking. "It's me," I announced myself. Then, I stood at the door, waiting for it to be opened. Xavier opened the door, looking at me in surprise. "Why are you here?" I immediately noticed the bathrobe he was wearing, and most of my anger dissipated. Immediately after that, a person emerged from behind him, Chloe. Although it was a scene I had expected long ago, it still made my heart jolt violently. I clenched my fists tightly and, with great effort, forced a professional smile. "Honey, didn't you say you missed me? So here I am." I pretended to be surprised, paused for a moment, and then swept my gaze behind him. "You have a friend here? Did I come at a bad time?" Xavier didn't say anything and just watched me with a relaxed look, which made me feel a bit awkward. "Well, you two continue chatting. I'll sit by the side and promise not to disturb you," I said with a smile as I walked in on my own. "No. There's nothing to talk about. Since you're here, then I'll leave and not disturb you too." Chloe was the first to get scared and was so embarrassed that she was about to leave immediately. "Wait a moment," I called out to her. She was so frightened that her face turned pale, and she stood there trembling, with tears starting to well up in her eyes again. I looked her up and down, and finally, my smile softened. I handed her a portion of the breakfast I was holding. "You haven't had breakfast yet, right? I bought this for you too." She took the breakfast carefully. She looked really scared. "Thank you." "You're welcome. You call Xavier brother, so logically, you should call me sister-in-law, don't you think?" I looked at her with a smile. She looked at Xavier, and since Xavier still didn't interfere, she frowned, bit her lip, and said, "Sis-ter-in-law. Good girl." I hooked my arm around Xavier's and deliberately buried my head shyly in his chest. "Your brother and I haven't seen each other for so long, and we have things to do, so I won't see you out. Come and visit us at home when you return to Jiangcheng." Chloe didn't say anything. She took the breakfast and ran away while wiping her tears. After closing the door, Xavier lowered his head and looked at me with an inscrutable expression. "Haven't seen each other for so long? Have things to do?" "Yes, quite a lot. It's hard to explain in a short while." I mumbled some random excuses. "Should I invest in a movie for you so that you can become an Oscar-winning actress?" "Go away." I sprang away from him as if avoiding the plague. "Sure, it's not impossible." I wiped my hands with a tissue in disgust. "But as a wealthy family's daughter-in-law, is it okay to show my face in public?" He walked over, ignored me, and sat down on the sofa in a relaxed manner, his eyes fixed on me inch by inch. "You're so addicted to acting, showing off your affection wherever you go. What a waste of talent. Damn it. I'm sincere. Why do you always misunderstand me, Mr. Xia?" I straightened my dress, sat down properly across from him, took out the breakfast, arranged it on a plate, and inserted a straw for him. "Let's eat. It'll get cold soon." Seeing that he didn't move and was still staring at me, I avoided his gaze. After a while, his secretary and assistant called him. He answered the phone, but his eyes were still on me. I could vaguely hear some of it and knew that he was still very busy today. So, I consciously went to the bedroom to get his shirt and suit for him and matched them up. How about this black plaid tie? He looked at me lazily. It's 8:30. Your meeting is at 9, right? Hurry up and change. Seeing that he didn't move, I had to go over and urge him. He glanced at me, then lazily stretched out his hand for me to pull him up. My first reaction was to slap his hand away forcefully, but my good upbringing didn't allow me to do that. I reached out to pull him, but he didn't move. Then, with a gentle tug from him, I fell right onto his lap. I was trying to find a support point, and my hand slipped inside his bathrobe. I was startled. Is this the reason why you rushed here to see me so excitedly? He looked at my wandering hand with amusement. Seeing him laughing at me like that, my fighting spirit was aroused. What's wrong with touching? It's legal and proper. As I said that, I even deliberately moved my hand a bit. Probably not expecting me to be so thick-skinned, he was at a loss for words for a moment. He just looked at me with his charming eyes, looking a bit dazed for a moment. To be honest, you should work on your abs. The feel is just so kind of soft. As I said that, I was about to climb up. He looked at me, not angry but actually smiling. Then go a bit lower. I stood up in a second, and my face turned red instantly. This damn man. Hurry up and get up. You'll really be late. I admit, I was a bit flustered. I couldn't really explain exactly what I was flustered about. He didn't pester me anymore and stood up to change his clothes. I stood behind him to help him dress, checking his back inch by inch. There were no marks left by any woman. I was a bit surprised and also felt an inexplicable sense of smugness. Are your eyes glued to me? He looked down at me with amusement. I withdrew my thoughts and started tying his tie again. I'm just afraid that some people are so clingy to you. Thinking about the hickey on Chloe's neck that day, I felt really annoyed, so I muttered a complaint. But he grabbed my hand and said in a low voice, "Nonsense." Then just think I'm talking nonsense. But some people barged into your room early in the morning and were about to do something improper. He was stunned for a second. Probably realizing what I was talking about, he must have felt a bit guilty. Chloe? He asked me. Asking when he already knew the answer, who knows? I replied curtly. She's my brother's girlfriend. He shook off my hand and tied his own tie, looking a bit downcast. Why are you being so jealous for no reason? His brother's girlfriend? Did I misunderstand? But was it really a misunderstanding? Why did he look so off? I wanted to ask more, but considering that he was about to go to a meeting and he probably wouldn't answer me anyway, I held back to avoid making a fool of myself. When will you be back tonight? I asked him when I saw him to the door. What do you want to know that for? I'm all alone. It's so boring. He stared at me without speaking and then sighed. That's why I told you not to come. What are you here for? If I didn't come, that green tea bitch would probably end up in his bed tonight. In less than half a month, I'd have to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau again to exchange the red marriage certificate for a green divorce one. I missed you. Waiting for you to come back. As I said that, I grabbed his shoulder, stood on tiptoe, and kissed him on the cheek. He stood there, stunned, staring at me, not knowing what was on his mind. Just as I was about to pull away, his arm tightened around my waist. He hugged me and lowered his head to kiss me. The unexpected kiss caught me off guard. My heart started racing, and my mind went blank. He even pinched my waist playfully. Go all out when you're putting on an act. Being so perfunctory wouldn't be worthy of you coming all this way. After that, he and his assistant left, leaving me standing there in a daze. Damn man. However, I kind of wanted more? I slapped my face hard to try to wake myself up. 10 after he left, I was alone in the hotel and picked up my phone again to look at that message. Miss Selena, if you divorce Mr. Xie now, you can only get a few 100,000 yuan in the division of property. Because you've only been married to him for 2 months, and Mr. Xie has had his premarital property notarized. I was a bit flustered when I saw the WeChat message from Lawyer Tan. This was what I had consulted him about during the 5 minutes I was standing outside the door. If I divorce Xavier now, how much can I get? During the 5 minutes when he and Chloe were being all lovey-dovey inside the door, I had made the worst-case scenario. And the result was that I could only get a few 100,000 yuan? Why? I sent another message. Then what should I do to get more property? Buying real estate, properties, things you purchased during the marriage belong to the joint property of the couple. You can get half of it after divorce. And another way is to have a child. I was desperate, really. Since I got married to Xavier, I've only bought some clothes and bags. How much could they be worth? Vivian called me and asked about the situation. I was like a deflated balloon. Don't mention it. Did they really do it? I don't know. I told Vivian what Xavier had just said about Chloe being his brother's girlfriend. We analyzed it for half an hour and finally figured out the whole story. So, Chloe is the child of their family's nanny. The three of them grew up together. Chloe likes the mature and steady older brother Sean, and Xavier likes Chloe, so Chloe treats Xavier as a backup. Goodness, second young Master Xie is such a lovesick fool. Selena, you're the Mary Sue chosen by heaven to redeem this little wolf dog. Those cheesy CEO romance novels have taken over your brain. I rolled my eyes at her countless times. Really, Xavier's character is so appealing. The school bully, the hooligan, the decisive businessman. Oh my, he's actually a lovesick little wolf dog. So attractive. So, tell me, what's the usual plot in those Mary Sue novels? I asked her with a smile. You go and be his lapdog, living at the bottom of the food chain, being the one who silently devotes herself. Then, he'll never touch you for his white moonlight. You'll live like a widow for 1,000 years. Finally, you can't take it anymore and get divorced, then he'll see the light after the clouds part and get together with the injured Chloe, raising the child of Chloe and his brother. My vision went black. So cheesy. But it's really like that. Since we got married 2 months ago, Xavier hasn't touched me. We've only kissed once or twice. It really fits the plot of those novels. 17 Xavier came back a bit late that night. I hadn't slept and was sitting in the living room waiting for him. Still awake? He was taking off his tie and coat as he spoke, looking not in a very good mood. I perked up and walked over to take his coat. Were you very tired today? He ignored me and walked to the coffee table to pour himself some water. I quickly went over and poured a glass of water for him on my own initiative. He looked at me strangely. Do you want me to give you a shoulder massage? I'm quite good at it. He sat on the sofa, gave me a stare. Selena, I'm tired. There's no one else here. Stop acting. I'm just doing my duty as a wife. Can't you just enjoy it? I glared at him unhappily and started massaging his shoulders. How do you want me to enjoy it? He sounded a bit weak, and his face was wearing a devilish smile. I froze there. Actually, I was weighing things up. Didn't you ask the secretary to book another room for you? He changed the subject. Wouldn't it be a waste to book 2 rooms? I forced a smile that he didn't say anything, just smiled. Later, we washed up and went to bed. Everything was so natural. Finally, we lay down together. He didn't make any move. Instead, he seemed to be falling asleep. I was severely hit. Such a beautiful woman, was lying beside him, and he was indifferent, even pretending to be dead? Damn it. He really had someone else in his heart and was willing to remain chaste for his first love. Why? I won't let him have his way. Anyway, he looks good and has a nice body. Enjoying him is my right granted by the law. I turned around, leaned over, and whispered, Xavier. His voice sounded sleepy. Do you want to kiss? I asked him. He paused for a moment and finally opened his eyes. His charming eyes stared at me in the dark. What do you want to do again? Your grandfather said he wants a great-grandson. I said with confidence. He continued to stare at me. After a while, he said, not today. He refused me. Even with my thick skin, I still felt a bit embarrassed. Fine, I'll ask again tomorrow. I quickly turned around, pretending nothing had happened. Actually, I was clenching my teeth so hard that they almost broke. I'm so miserable. After getting married, I can hardly get much money in the divorce settlement, and I still have to live like a widow. I wanted to find some extra happiness for myself, but got rejected. We're all adults. I'm not some pure and ascetic fairy in the first place. Moreover, I actually lied today. His abs felt really good when I touched them. I'm guilty. Come here. He suddenly sighed and pulled me over. What for? Don't mess with me. He's hurt my feelings. I consider him my enemy now. It's 12 o'clock now. I have to get up at 6 tomorrow morning to go to a meeting. He looked at me seriously. So, do you want me to get up and buy you breakfast? See, I'm so pitiful. I have no money but still have to maintain the image of a virtuous wife and mother, and work like a servant for him. Who wants you to buy breakfast? He looked at me angrily. I'm just reminding you that if you want to do something, do it quickly. I was dumbfounded. I didn't know what to do next. Working during the day and working overtime at night. I owe you. He started unbuttoning his shirt while grumbling. Why do I feel that it's the other way around? This is different from what's written in the novels. You don't have to unbutton your shirt. I whispered. Selena, why are you in such a hurry? Instantly, I was so ashamed that I wished I could disappear. Fortunately, the lights were off, so no one could see. Stop talking nonsense. I took the initiative to kiss him. Wait a moment. He stopped me. What's wrong? He's really being fussy. I need to call my assistant to buy something. I was stunned for a moment. Wouldn't that be known to everyone then? No need. I'm fine. I promised with confidence. He sighed. It's not good for you. Such a nag. I just kissed him directly midway. He asked me to hold on. I nodded eagerly. I really can. I'm fine. In the end, I kicked him out of the bed. I'm really sleepy. He went to sleep on the sofa the next morning. He held me and kissed my hair, being incredibly gentle. Honey. I put my arms around his neck and acted coquettish. The seaside villa of our family is so far from the urban area. It's not convenient for me to go shopping. And then? He lowered his eyes and stared at me. I think the newly built courtyard house in the second ring road is nice. With white walls, black tiles, pavilions and side yards, it especially suits your status. I drew circles on his chest with my finger, acting coquettish. Really? Then how about I give you one? He asked with a smile. Ah, such a big courtyard must be very expensive. I was secretly delighted. Selena came all the way to my bed, saying those sweet words, just for this? But suddenly he got angry. He threw off the quilt, got out of bed directly, and then started washing up, dressing up, all in one go. Of course not. I swear. Believe me. I denied it 3 times in a row. What do you think I am? After a tiring night, am I just a tool? When he was tying his tie, I suspected that he wanted to strangle me with the tie. Why was he so angry? I haven't even got angry yet. Xavier, make it clear. Who was the one being tossed around last night? I'm really the one who got the short end of the stick. I feel disgusted. After throwing out these words, he picked up his coat and left directly, only leaving a cold back for me. I stood there, completely stunned. After sitting quietly in the hotel for 2 hours, I just couldn't figure out how the situation had developed like this. A house is just a drop in the ocean for him. Did he really have to be like this? He didn't show any mercy or pity for me and just left me like that. Sure enough, rich people are the stingiest. Later, I sent him messages, but he didn't reply. When I called him, he was either in a meeting or busy, always avoiding me. Does he just forget about me after getting what he wants? Once again, my plan failed. I really felt that I had thrown myself in without getting any benefits. When I contacted him again, honey, do you want to have dinner together? He sounded very impatient. Selena, next time just say directly what you want. Don't beat around the bush. I was really pissed off. It really sucks to be nice to someone who treats you coldly. I did say it. So, will you buy it? That would cost 100 million. He paused slightly. Do you think you're worth that much? I was instantly speechless. The conversation wasn't pleasant, so I hung up the phone. 13 Staying in the hotel was really boring. Let it all go to hell. I'll just slack off. Life isn't worth it. I used Xavier's supplementary credit card to book the most luxurious business class for myself and went back to Jiangcheng. In the evening, he finally asked me on WeChat, "Didn't you say you wanted to have dinner together? Where are you?" I looked at the WeChat message and sneered in my heart. Did he only remember me during the afterglow of sex? I went back to Jiangcheng. He paused for a second, his tone cold. "Selena, I'm very busy every day. It's rare for me to spare time to have dinner with you. Don't play games with me." I'm playing games with him? Even being honest is playing games with him? Okay, honey. How about having a virtual dinner together? I started a video call with him. I put our family's teddy dog in front of the camera and let his kind keep him company while he ate. "Selena, what on earth do you mean?" But he was furious. "Honey, don't get angry. Getting angry easily makes your liver hurt, and a hurting liver may lead to an early death. Then how could I possibly spend all your money by myself? I'm so anxious. Are you sure you want to keep being so sarcastic? Honey doesn't like it? Then I'll just be mute from now on." He never replied to me again. From then on, we started a 2-week-long Cold War. I went shopping and ate whatever I liked every day. I didn't bother to care about him. Originally, he was supposed to go directly to another city and probably wouldn't come back to Jiangcheng until a month later. But suddenly he came back midway. When he came back, I was attending a class reunion with my girlfriends. He called me. "Let's talk. Can you find me at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning? I'm really sleepy." "So sleepy? But your WeChat Moments location is still at the KTV?" I was startled. I quickly hung up the phone and then remembered to delete the photos in my WeChat Moments immediately. Vivian saw that I looked flustered. "What's wrong?" "He's back and found out that I was at the KTV so late. My image of a virtuous wife and mother is gone again." I drank my orange juice gloomily. "Why are you so afraid of him now? You don't even drink alcohol anymore and have become so obedient." Vivian laughed at me. "Who's afraid of him? I'm just hopeless about my marriage." At the class reunion, everyone was envying me for becoming a wealthy family's wife. Even our former teachers looked at me with new eyes. I was bombarded with requests for my WeChat. Actually, who knows the hardships of being in a wealthy family? However, since you're married, you should have a good talk with him. He likes that person and doesn't like me. How can I talk to him? I don't have any leverage. True. Vivian looked at me. "So, when you went there this time, didn't anything happen between you two?" As soon as this was mentioned, I lost my confidence. "Don't mention it." "Why?" "Before I met him, I thought I could stay calm in the face of temptation. And then?" Vivian was suddenly interested. It was really hard to control myself. Imagine, a really handsome man, lying in front of you, almost falling asleep, defenseless, and with such a great body. Right? It was just so." Vivian spat out the wine she had just drunk and laughed so hard that she bent over backwards. I looked at her expressionlessly. Was it that funny? When she finally stopped laughing, I thought she had enough, but then she winked at me secretly. "How did it feel?" "Not good. I advise you not to try. Novels are all lies." I gestured to her with my hands and couldn't help shaking my head. She clearly understood my body language immediately and was shocked. "Really? Was it that he wasn't good at it? Anyway, it was a waste of his good looks." "Really? I've heard that. One needs to practice more." I was really speechless. How could she say that? It's so embarrassing. Just then, a familiar voice came from above my head. "Selena." When I looked up, I saw my persistent ex-boyfriend, Ryan. My heart skipped a beat. It had only been 3 months since we last saw each other. How could he have become so thin? Senior. Vivian was also stunned. "Can I have a private word with Selena?" "Why, yes." Vivian gave me a look that seemed to say be careful, and then quickly left. Ryan sat down in front of me, looking at me affectionately. "Long time no see." As soon as he said that, his eyes turned red. Looking at him like this, I did feel a bit sorry for him. "Why are you here? Are you doing well?" We both spoke at the same time. The atmosphere became even more awkward. I'm doing fine. I smiled. Just say what you want to say. 14. I looked at him quietly. Did my mother come to see you? He got straight to the point. There was sadness in his tone when he said this. Yes. I answered frankly. Was it because of her that you broke up with me? Sort of, but not entirely. He stood there and took a deep breath. Do you know? At first, I always thought you were just playing around with me. But when you stopped being unreasonable and calmly blocked me, I realized that you really wanted to break up this time. I couldn't figure out why until later when I found out that my mother had come to see you. It was she who asked you to leave me, wasn't it? It's my fault. I should have protected you better. As he said this, he started to cry. A big boy over 6 feet tall was standing in front of me, crying like a baby. Looking at him like this, it would be a lie to say I wasn't sad. After all, he was someone I used to like. It's all in the past. I took out a tissue from my bag and handed it to him. Besides that, I didn't know what else to do. When we broke up, his mother had clearly said to me, Selena, a girl from a small family like you can never enter a wealthy family like ours. Ryan must have spent a lot of money on you during your relationship. You should be content. A girl like you, he can keep you outside without letting the family know, and I can turn a blind eye to it. But it's absolutely impossible for you to enter our family. I was humiliated like never before that night, and I cried all night. I sent him a message asking, what will you do if your mother doesn't approve of us being together? He replied, I don't know. At that time, I thought to myself, why would I want to marry someone like him? Was I asking for trouble? If I can persuade my mother, can we get back together? He suddenly asked me. I was stunned. I just found it hilarious. So hilarious that I almost laughed out tears. Ryan, I'm married. I showed him my ring. But you don't love him. He broke down when he saw my ring. You can deceive everyone, but not me. You don't love him at all. So what? I looked at him with a smile. I don't love Xavier, and Xavier doesn't love me either. I think it's fair. I loved Ryan, and what did I get in return? His mother's humiliation and his cowardice in the family. By marrying Xavier, I at least got money. One shouldn't be so greedy. Divorce him and let's get back together, okay? He held my hand and begged me in a low voice. I got a headache. How could there be such a childish person? Sure. Then go and tell your mother to give me half of your company's shares, okay? I asked him with a smile. He was horrified and stared at me for a full minute. Selena, I don't have the final say on those shares, and my mother would never. Can you ask for something else? I took a deep breath. So, Ryan, you keep saying you love me. How do you love me? Just with words? Unfortunately, I'm past the age of believing in love just from what I hear. I shook off his hand. Just as I was about to leave, he hugged me from behind. I love you. Please don't go. The next second, the door was pushed open. In the dim light, Xavier stood still. His expression was a bit hard to make out. Am I interrupting you? My heart skipped a beat. Xavier's disappointment was evident in his tone. I just came to remind you that I won't be back for another month. You can have a good chat with your old lover. With that, he turned and left. It seemed he had misunderstood. I was a bit worried inside, but on the surface, I calmly asked Ryan to let go. Let go? No. Seeing that Xavier was about to walk away, I couldn't care less. I kicked Ryan away and chased after Xavier. He was walking fast. By the time I chased him out, he had already got on the elevator going down to the garage. I quickly pressed the button for the adjacent elevator. But as fate would have it, after getting in, the elevator first went up floor by floor and then slowly went down, with people getting on and off at each floor. By the time I reached the garage, it was 10 minutes later. I dejectedly started to call him. He didn't answer. He was obviously angry. After calling for a while, just as I was about to hang up, I vaguely heard the ringtone in the garage. Following the sound, I saw Xavier's car. He didn't turn on the headlights. He was sitting quietly in the back seat, looking a bit gloomy. When he saw me, he raised his eyes and looked at me too. I had mixed feelings and quickly ran over. Waiting for me? I opened the car door and got in. He didn't say anything. He even moved his body slightly to the other side, turned his face towards the car window, and ignored me. The driver drove the car slowly towards home. All the way, no matter what I said, he ignored me. Why did you come home early? Are you done with your work? He ignored me. Are you tired? I'll give you a shoulder massage when we get home. He ignored me. By the way, you called to say you wanted to talk to me. What about? He still ignored me. Xavier, I'm cold. I acted coquettish. He didn't turn around. He just rolled up the window on his side a bit. Xavier, I want your coat. I gently tugged at the corner of his coat. No way. He finally spat out 2 words harshly. I'll catch a cold. I said pitifully. He lost his patience and ordered the driver, turn up the air conditioning temperature. TSK, cold-blooded. He remained like this all the way. I lost my patience to coax him. When we got home, he consciously went to his own room. Just as I was about to enter, he turned around and reprimanded me, "Get out. We're husband and wife." I protested. When you were hugging and cuddling with your sweetheart just now, why didn't you remember we're husband and wife? He retorted. You're such a smart person. Can't you see it was a misunderstanding? I was speechless. Xavier wasn't that stupid, was he? Misunderstanding? He threw his coat aside. He said he loves you, wants you to divorce me and get back together with him. I'm not deaf. He was hugging you, and you didn't push him away. You tell me this is a misunderstanding? Would it be that if he had taken off your clothes a bit later, you would still say it was a misunderstanding? He completely lost his temper, pushed me into the corner, pinned my hands above my head, and lowered his head to kiss me. It was so intense that I could hardly breathe. He was crazy. I pushed him hard, but I couldn't push him away. Finally, I bit him. Maybe because he felt the pain, he finally let me go. What about you and Chloe? I asked him with a smile. If she asked you to divorce me, what would you do? He was stunned for a moment, and then suddenly said dejectedly, she's different. Oh? How is she different? I never dated her. Never dated, or just didn't have the chance to date? He didn't answer. He just stared at me deeply. After a while, he let me go. Can't you stop being so unreasonable? You were the one who wanted to get married, and you were the one who wanted to, you know. He was acting like the victim now? Go away, scumbag. I don't want to, you know, anymore. I threw out these words and turned around to go back to my own room. Xavier and I started another long Cold War. We slept in separate rooms and had nothing to do with each other. I don't know why. Before, when he ignored me, I could still get along with him just fine. But since this incident, I always feel uncomfortable just being in the same space with him. So I simply made an excuse to go back and keep his grandfather company, and then I stayed at his grandfather's place for good. I don't know if it's because of the quarrel with him. I'm feeling so aggrieved that I've recently had no appetite and my chest feels stuffy. During his 1-month business trip, we didn't meet once, and we only talked on the phone once or twice. One day, he called his grandfather, and I happened to be there. His grandfather happily asked me to say a few words to him. Actually, I was extremely embarrassed. Ran off to the old man's place? After a month of not seeing each other, his voice sounded a bit strange to me. Yes. We'll be back next week. Oh. Aren't you coming home? He asked me again. Grandpa will be too bored if I leave. He can't do without me now. I made an excuse not to go back. What's the point of going back? He'll just ignore me and won't come back either. I'll be really bored out of my mind staying alone in the villa. Why do you always go and bother the old man? Should I go and bother you instead of Grandpa? I retorted. He fell silent and then sighed. Hang up. Recently, he's been calling his grandfather way too often. And it's such a coincidence that every time he calls, I'm just playing chess with his grandfather. What kind of lousy business trip are you on? His grandfather scolded him on the phone while playing chess with me. You only come home once or twice a month. You might as well not come back at all. Just stay outside for the rest of your life. I'll just pretend I don't have you as my grandson. Busy? What are you busy with? Are you short of money or just plain stupid? Why don't you just stay single with your money for the rest of your life? His grandfather gave him a good scolding. After hanging up the phone, his grandfather looked at me with a big smile. Selena, don't worry. If that brat dares to bully you, Grandpa will break his legs. Can I say that I'm hiding here to avoid Xavier? Then, the next day, I was playing chess with his grandfather. I don't really know how to play chess. I'm just trying to make the old man happy. Just when I was about to lose miserably again, Grandpa, can I take back my move? I asked weakly. Grandpa held down my chess piece, not allowing me to take it back. How could that be possible? There's no such thing as a regret pill in life. I sighed in my heart, thinking that Grandpa was right. Xavier, why are you back? I widened my eyes in surprise. Grandpa turned around to look following the sound. Taking this opportunity, I quickly switched my chess piece. By the time Grandpa realized I was cheating him, I had already turned the situation around single-handedly. Where is he? Grandpa didn't see anyone and turned around to ask me. Maybe I missed him so much that I was seeing things. I stuck out my tongue, looking lovesick. I remember just now. Grandpa adjusted his reading glasses, looking at the chessboard in disbelief. The chessboard wasn't like this just now. This white piece wasn't here, and this black piece wasn't here either. Did I remember it wrong? Maybe you remembered it wrong. I was secretly laughing in my heart. Alas, I'm getting old and muddle-headed. It's your turn. Let's continue. Okay, Grandpa. I happily placed a white chess piece. Come here. A voice came from above my head. I was startled. Xavier? When I looked up, I saw him standing behind me, wearing a suit. It seemed that he had just come back from a business trip and hadn't even had time to change his clothes. I hadn't seen him for a long time. To my surprise, I was actually struck by how handsome he was, and my heart skipped a beat. I'm playing chess. I pretended to be calm. Didn't you say you missed me so much? He lowered his eyes, staring at me with an inscrutable expression. Come here. Brash kid, why are you being so fierce? Ordering your wife around as soon as you get back. Grandpa was the first to object. He glared at Xavier. Old man, you know she's my wife too. Xavier had an unafraid and cocky look. He bent down, grabbed my hand, and was about to drag me away. Grandpa, he must have missed me so much. I'll come back to play chess with you later. I smiled to ease the embarrassment. Hearing that, Grandpa showed a satisfied smile at the corners of his mouth. Xavier dragged me all the way to the corner of the garden before letting go of my hand. You dared to switch Grandpa's chess pieces? I felt a bit guilty and lacked confidence in my speech. I don't even know how to play chess. I was just trying to please your grandpa. He snorted coldly. When it comes to pleasing the elders, you really spare no effort. If there's nothing else, I'll go first. I didn't give him a pleasant look either. Just as I was about to leave, my hand was grabbed by him. He pulled me to his side and said in a low voice, "Didn't you say you missed me and got Grandpa to call me back all the way? It would be unreasonable of me not to let you take some advantage. What do you want to do in broad daylight?" I struggled to back away, but he followed me and pushed me against the rose tree. The thorns on the roses stabbed my back painfully. I had nowhere to retreat. Maybe you should ask yourself what you want to do to me? He reached out and put his arm around my waist to protect my back from the thorns, with a devilish smile on his face. I don't want to do anything. I refused while my mouth was watering. My heart was beating so fast at this close distance. That night when you were bullying me, you weren't as cold as you are now. He chuckled softly. You. I was at a loss for words, too nervous to speak. There's someone. 18. I tried to push him away. He completely ignored Uncle Wong who was passing by watering the flowers. He just slightly turned his body to block my face. Back already? Uncle Wong greeted him. Yeah, Uncle Wong. Watering the flowers? He greeted naturally. Well, you carry on. Yeah. I saw the look in Uncle Wong's eyes when he looked at me. I was so embarrassed that I could die. And Xavier was still shamelessly hugging me. What are you afraid of? Don't you always want to show off your affection? Now that you have the chance, you're scared? He looked at me amusedly. What am I afraid of? I just wouldn't admit defeat. I'm not like some people who kept asking if it was bad for their health that night. He froze on the spot, and his ears turned red. Selena, that was my first time. He was a bit annoyed. How long are you going to keep mocking me? I quickly pushed him away to create some distance. I'm not mocking you. I'm just stating the facts. After saying that, I slipped back to the room. Unexpectedly, he followed me in. I was playing with my phone on the sofa, and he just picked up a book to read casually. We didn't interfere with each other. This room was where he used to live when he was a child. Since I came to his grandfather's place, I've been staying in his room. But I don't have the hobby of prying into other people's privacy, and I don't like reading either. I haven't touched any of his things. Can't you go out and read? I was a bit speechless. With him here, I felt nervous even when playing with my phone. Without even looking up, he said casually, "This is my room." Yes, it's your room. Don't you think it's easy for people to misunderstand if we stay in the room all day long without going out? Misunderstand what? He picked up another book to continue reading. He looked extremely relaxed now that he had changed into his casual clothes. What do you think they'll misunderstand? I was speechless. Occasionally, I could hear the voices of his grandfather and others outside the door. I held my breath and didn't dare to make a sound, for fear of being misunderstood. He, on the other hand, seemed to be afraid that people wouldn't misunderstand. Finally, he put down the book and looked at me for a full half-minute. And then he didn't say anything. Forget it. I was too lazy to argue with him. I decided to go out on my own with my phone. But when I walked up to him, I tripped over something and fell right onto him. His face looked solemn, and he frowned in pain. Are you trying to confirm this misunderstanding? I immediately sprang away from him. I slipped. I explained. Did you really slip, or do you have the guts but not the courage? He shook his head, picked up the book, and continued reading. I just got back. I'm tired. Later. I'm really going crazy. Does he think I'm a pervert in his heart? Am I that kind of person? But then, my hand was caught. The next second, I fell right onto his lap. Just as I was about to speak, "Don't use provocation. I won't fall for that." He stared at me intently with his charming eyes. Looking at his lips so close to mine, only 4 words came to my mind: disastrously handsome. Then, as if possessed, I tilted my head up and kissed him on the lips. How about this? I looked at him with a smile. He was stunned for a moment, and his eyes gradually became misty. What on earth do you want to do? He turned his face away to avoid me. So cold? Forget it. What could I possibly do? It's broad daylight. I said as I stood up, ready to go out. He looked up at me. Selena, do you think I'm not strong enough? Don't worry, I'm more than capable of dealing with you. I believe you. I really do. I was too lazy to argue with him. You're such a... He threw the book aside. The next second, a shadow fell over my eyes. I was kissed again. My mind went blank. After kissing for a few seconds, he let me go and looked at me with a smile. Now, do you want to continue? A wild flurry of heartbeats in my chest was driving me crazy. No. No more. I quickly tried to escape. This had gone too far, contradicting yourself. He kissed me again. Just when my mind was in a complete mess, a sound was heard. The door was pushed open. Auntie, where's the Ultraman you bought for me? A little kid came running in with a clatter, about to throw himself into my arms. Discovering that I was kissing Xavier, he stared at me with his big round eyes, then at Xavier, looking thoughtful. It was Cody, the son of Xavier's cousin. Xavier and I immediately sprang apart. Well, Cody, go and have a look on the sofa on the first floor. It should be there. I composed myself and tried to keep smiling. Oh. Cody glanced at Xavier. Uncle, were you fighting? Don't bully Andy. No. Xavier was a bit amused and exasperated. You, go out. Oh. Cody hung his head and walked out, looking puzzled. At dinner, Grandpa was scolding Xavier for rarely coming home. I buried my head and listened to him being reprimanded, feeling secretly pleased. Grandpa, a man's career is the most important thing. Xavier works hard outside to earn money and support the family. I spoke up for him. The family members all praised me highly. Only Selena has such a good temper. Any other young lady from a wealthy family wouldn't put up with this. Yes, Selena is well educated and reasonable. She comes back to keep the old man company every day and is so filial, unlike Xavier. Xavier had a faint smile on his lips throughout. I suspected he wasn't even listening, because he was staring at me at the slightest of my movements. When I wanted to pick up some vermicelli, he would roll it up with a fork and place it beside my hand. When I wanted to eat lobster, he would slowly peel it and put it in my bowl. When I wanted to wipe my mouth, he would already have a tissue in my hand. No wonder Selena hasn't shown any signs of pregnancy after 3 months of marriage. If he doesn't come home, how could there be any signs? Finally, there was a change in Xavier's expression. We've only been married for 3 months. Don't rush us. He sighed helplessly. As a result, Cody, who had been eating quietly, suddenly said, "Mom, you said we can only kiss kids on the cheek, but just now I saw Auntie and Uncle hugging and kissing on the mouth." I almost spat out the food I had just eaten. Dozens of eyes at the dinner table were all staring at Xavier and me. The atmosphere was extremely awkward. I secretly looked at Xavier, but he seemed extremely calm and just smiled helplessly. "Kids, don't talk nonsense. Eat your dinner." The adults quickly stopped him. "I'm not talking nonsense." Auntie was even sitting on Uncle's lap. "Uncle, Cody didn't finish his sentence as his mouth was covered in thyme. My face was blushing all the way to my ears. This was so embarrassing. They're a newlywed couple. It's understandable. Everyone tried to ease the awkwardness for us. I felt even more embarrassed. I ate my food with my head down. Suddenly, my phone rang. "Xavier, don't eat coriander." Me? Xavier, I don't like the smell. Me, what does that have to do with me? Xavier, if you still want to enter my room tonight, don't eat it. Me? He was really being baffling. I refused to listen. Coriander was my favorite. Who cared about entering his room? I deliberately picked up a lot of coriander, but he simply took the plate away. "You." I glared at him. Not wanting to cause a conflict in front of the family, I had to keep smiling and endure it. After dinner, naturally, Xavier and I were in the same room. He wanted to go to the guest room, but was scolded back to the room by his grandpa. So we were in the room, staring at each other awkwardly. "Don't you dare to go against your grandpa?" I was a bit dissatisfied. "Yeah, he's really fierce. You saw that too." He had an expression of being forced. "How are we going to sleep tonight?" The thought of what happened to me when we were in the hotel last time. I was still traumatized. Especially when he was so cold and sarcastic to me the next morning after waking up. I didn't want that to happen again. I must control myself tonight and not do anything thankless. "You sleep on the sofa, I'll sleep on the bed." He arranged it while holding his clothes. "Why?" "Because this is my room." He pointed at the layout of the room. "And the sofa is too short for me to sleep on. Are you even a man?" He actually wanted me to sleep on the sofa while he slept on the bed? He looked at me with a smile. "You know very well whether I am or not." Me. "Go away." I took my clothes and went to the bathroom. After taking a bath, I lay on the sofa. Suddenly, I felt nauseous and was about to rush into the toilet to vomit. Xavier was still taking a bath in there. I couldn't care less. I banged on the door hard. "Open the door." "Open it." "What's wrong?" "I feel like vomiting." "Open the door first." I covered my mouth, unable to speak clearly. I rushed to the sink and vomited violently. But after vomiting for a minute, except for my saliva, nothing came out. I looked up and saw Xavier standing behind me, only wrapped in a towel, with a head full of foam, staring at me meaningfully. "I'm not lying." I really felt sick just now. And then? Obviously, he didn't believe me, and obviously, I couldn't explain it clearly. This was so strange. Forget it. You continue. I walked out with a red face and even closed the door for him consciously. After staying at the door for a few seconds, I felt nauseous again in my stomach, and I started banging on the door again. This time, he opened the door immediately. Come in. He walked over casually and continued washing his hair, as if he had given up struggling. I was a bit embarrassed because I didn't want to vomit anymore. Is it that you feel like vomiting as soon as you go out? Then stay inside. Don't go out. I was startled. This method was good. But it was quite nosebleed-inducing. After a few minutes, maybe because the steam was too hot, I got a nosebleed. I was in a flurry to stop the bleeding. Lean your head back. Xavier walked over, gently held my head, and then put a towel soaked in cold water on the back of my head. Don't move. He still looked calm. But I just wanted to find a hole to hide in. This was so embarrassing. Has this happened before? He asked me while helping me stop the bleeding. Huh? What? Seeing a handsome guy and getting a nosebleed. My face blushed crimson. No. No. Maybe I ate too many chips today. I got internal heat. I explained. He lowered his eyes and stared at me. Internal heat? Do you need my help? No. I covered my nose and ran outside. Suddenly, my body felt light as I was picked up horizontally. Don't sleep on the sofa anymore. He put me on the side of the bed. Then, after washing up, he lay down with me. I was very nervous, and my heart was beating fast. What happened next happened naturally. He held my face affectionately and intently and kissed me. I didn't refuse. When are we going home? He asked me softly in the middle of the kiss. Huh? You don't go home. What's the point of me going back? I complained. This is my grandpa's house. He stopped and looked at me. Are you planning to live here for the rest of your life? It's nice here. There are people to play with me, and the shopping mall is just one street away. It's convenient for shopping. Actually, the most important thing was that Xavier's grandpa liked me very much. I was quite happy here. He stared at me without speaking and finally sighed, lowering his voice. It's not convenient here. What's not convenient? I think life here is quite convenient. He glanced at me and hesitated to speak. Kids might barge in at any time. What do you think? Suddenly realizing what he was talking about, my head felt hot, and I couldn't say a word. He finally hugged me and kissed my forehead. Let's go home tomorrow, okay? He coaxed me. I was so dazed by his kisses that I was about to agree. Then his phone rang. He didn't want to answer it at first, but after glancing at the words on the screen, he picked it up. What's the matter? It's late. If you're drunk, ask someone to send you back. Don't do anything stupid. Listening to him on the phone, I could probably guess who it was, and my heart sank. It was Chloe. After hanging up the phone, he looked at me absently. Aren't you going out? I looked at him. From the conversation, I could also roughly figure out the situation. It was nothing more than Chloe getting drunk in a bar and being unable to walk, asking him to pick her up. No. He also lost his interest and distanced himself from me, lying there, not knowing what he was thinking. What if something happens to her? I asked him again. That's her own doing. He sighed. Can I take care of her for the rest of her life? Discussing another woman with my husband was really awkward. I hesitated about how to continue this topic. Do you like her that much? I asked him. Before, I had heard about his and Chloe's story. I heard that Xavier had liked Chloe for many years. If it weren't for marrying me, they probably would have had children already. He turned his face and glanced at me, then got up and went to the balcony to smoke. Not really. He was a bit helpless. My heart skipped a beat. He continued, Selena, you can't expect me to have no one I liked before you. It's not something I can control. After all, I met her first. And then? Why weren't you two together before? I stood there, stunned, feeling as if I were a mistress who had broken them up. She and I grew up together. We went to school and came back home together every day. She chased me and asked me to be her boyfriend. We were together for a week, and then she dumped me. She said she liked me because I looked like my elder brother, but she couldn't deceive herself anymore. Isn't it ridiculous? Are all you women like this? Once you get what you want, you become reckless. You're the same. He was being self-deprecating. Why was he dragging me into this? I haven't done anything to wrong you, haven't you? Once you got what you wanted, you immediately changed your attitude. Either asking me to buy you a bag or a house. If I didn't, you'd ignore me. How do you think you're any better? I was startled. In his eyes, I had become a mean girl? After a long while, I finally said, "What about now? Do you still like her?" If he still liked her, I could turn a blind eye. If it really didn't work out, I'd back off. No, I don't. I'm tired. When he said he was tired, I saw the disappointment in his eyes. Later, he told me a lot about his childhood. Most of the time, I was the one asking questions, and he gave very few answers. Don't mention her. Does it hurt? He lowered his eyes and stared at me. I'm afraid you'll feel bad. I don't care, really. You don't feel anything at all? You won't get jealous? He looked at me in confusion. Why should I get jealous? I asked him back. Somehow, I must have said something that annoyed him, and he started to give me the cold shoulder again. Right, in your heart, there's nothing but money. Why are we back to this again? I was really speechless. Weren't we just talking about him and Chloe? I was even ready to console him. But suddenly, the blame was on me. So you like money that much? He asked me. Who doesn't like money? I asked him back with a smile. His face tensed up and looked even uglier. Then why didn't you marry the richest man in the world? He's even richer than me. Xavier, you're just being unreasonable. I thought for a second. I don't even know him. So you just didn't have the chance to know him. He snorted coldly. Okay, let's stop talking. I really didn't understand why every conversation with him ended up in an argument, so I had to stop it in time. He ignored me. Do you still want to kiss? If not, I'm going to sleep. He was really hard to please. No way. He said coldly. I was left speechless. We were at a stalemate for a few minutes, and it was really uncomfortable. I turned my face to him and coaxed him, Xavier, I really think you're even more difficult to deal with than my little brother. But you're only 3 days younger than me. Who's younger than you? I was 2 weeks overdue. He wasn't convinced. Still, it's the actual birth date that counts. I'll just call you little brother from now on. Little brother? He was so angry that he laughed. Before I could react, he pushed me down under him and kissed me on the lips as a punishment. You're really asking for it. You're the one asking for it. I am older than you. What's wrong with you calling me sister? Try saying that again? He threatened me. I laughed. Selena, would never be threatened by anyone. Little brother. What are you going to do? His eyes immediately changed. He pinned my hands above my head. Little brother. I'll serve you then. Me, 21 when I woke up the next day, it was already noon. He was long gone. During lunch, I inevitably got teased by his relatives. Young people these days stay up all night and don't get up during the day. They're a young couple. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Everyone had that knowing look. I played games too late. I muttered softly. Auntie, what games? Can I play them? Cody looked at me innocently. You're not old enough. His mother scolded him. Why not? Kids, don't ask. I had a racing heart throughout the meal. After eating, I quickly escaped back to the room. Grandpa was also very understanding and told me to go back and rest, that I didn't need to play chess with him. I sat in Xavier's room, lost in thought. I still had to go home. Staying here, even with my thick skin, I could hardly bear it anymore. I started packing my things. I sent a message to Xavier, I'll go back tomorrow. Is there anything you want me to bring back? Are you up? Are you okay? Fine. Are you feeling unwell anywhere? You said your stomach was upset yesterday. Do you want to see a doctor? Maybe I ate something bad. I'm okay now. Okay, you rest first. I'll come back and pack up tonight. Okay. Feeling his tenderness towards me, my heart suddenly felt warm. Although our marriage was just an arranged one by our families, I didn't have any expectations when I married into the family, but everything had started to change subtly. I began to wonder if he liked me a little bit too. Otherwise, why would he be so careful and gentle? Anyway, having nothing to do, I suddenly wanted to know about his childhood. Can I look at your childhood things? Why do you want to look at those? I'm bored. Go ahead. Take a nap later. So I rummaged through his things in the room and then saw a photo. It fell out of a high school Chinese textbook. The person in the photo was Chloe. She was wearing a school uniform, with a high ponytail, chatting and laughing with the classmates in front of her. Only a side profile was captured, and the person who took this photo was obviously Xavier. I don't know if it was because the photo was so beautiful or because it was taken by Xavier, but I felt a pang of jealousy in my heart just thinking about it. I curiously picked up the Chinese textbook, opened it, and found a passage on one of the middle pages. Could you please not always smile at others? Smile at me too. Even though I know clearly that even if you smile at me, it's not really for me. You're just seeing me as someone else seeing this. I was startled. After pausing for 2 seconds, I continued to turn the pages. Today you came to me and did homework with me for a while. You kept looking in the direction of the door. I knew who you were looking for. You were looking for him. Later, I never did homework with you again. You even asked me why. I don't want to be someone else's backup. My elder brother went abroad. I thought you would give up. I had been looking forward to it for a long time. I asked you which school you wanted to apply to. You said you wanted to go abroad too. I knew I should give up. I couldn't bear to read any more and quickly closed his Chinese textbook. I wanted to send him a WeChat message, but I didn't know what to say. Should I confront him about his high school relationship? That would only make me look ridiculous. After hesitating for a long time, I continued to read. I flipped directly to the last few pages. You said you wouldn't be with my elder brother anymore. You came to me crying, bad-mouthing my elder brother. I looked at you with heartache as you told me about the grievances you had suffered. I agreed to be your boyfriend. Then you didn't reply to my messages at night. I was worried all night, thinking I had scared you. But then you came to me with a smile and said you had gotten back together with my elder brother and asked me to bless you. Finally, we graduated. Finally, I don't have to like you anymore. It's great. When I saw the last page, I was in tears. My heart was aching and angry. What on earth was Chloe? In my opinion, she had always been playing with Xavier's feelings. She was like that before, and she's still like that now. She asks Xavier for help every now and then. Taking advantage of the fact that he used to like her, she's being reckless. I called Vivian to tell her about this, and Vivian was also so angry that she pounded her chest and stamped her feet. That green tea bitch Chloe really makes me furious. How could she bully our Xavier like this? As the legitimate wife, you have to find a way to deal with her and slap her in the face. 22 With Vivian's encouragement, I found Chloe's mobile phone number and made an appointment with her to have a showdown in a coffee shop. She was wearing a white dress again, sitting quietly across from me. Do you want me to leave Brother Xavier? She still looked so weak and innocent. Then please go back and tell him to stop liking me first. I only have his elder brother in my heart. He knows that. I didn't say anything, just picked up the coffee in front of me and took a sip. Acting. Let's see how she acts. If you came to me because I showed up in his room that morning, I can explain. She continued. I actually went to ask him for his elder brother's contact information. I pushed him away. We didn't do anything. I still didn't say anything, just pressed my temples a bit headachy. Why do men like this type? Xavier is really a dutiful backup. I almost want to give him a thumbs up. Do you like him? Too lazy to beat around the bush with her, I asked her directly. She hesitated for a while. No, I don't. I paused. She was more honest than I expected. So, if you don't like him, why do you still ask him for help with every little thing? She bit her lip and was at a loss for words. He and I are good friends since childhood. He's also my best friend. That's really well said. I almost clapped for her. What a childhood sweetheart, the ultimate lapdog. You know clearly that he likes you, but you still treat him as a backup, a lapdog? No, I just treat him like a brother. She defended herself. I completely lost my patience. Don't disgust me. I've checked the information. You're 3 months older than him. Probably not expecting me to say such straightforward words, her face instantly turned green. How can you say such things about me? Her acting skills were on display, and tears welled up in her eyes again. It seemed that if I said one more word or looked at her one more time, her tears would fall like beads off a broken string. You like his elder brother on one hand, and enjoy his care for you on the other. Under the guise of being good friends, you do ambiguous things and treat him as a substitute. He doesn't look like his elder brother, does he? Don't tell me you just fell for the same face. I never made him like me. Her tears finally fell. But you don't reject his kindness towards you, giving him hope and stringing him along. I looked at her calmly. Miss Selina, although you're married to him, the feelings between him and me growing up together are not something you can define. If he knew you were humiliating me like this. She looked up crying, staring at me. Oh, what a white lotus. She even brought him up to pressure me. Threatening me? Waiter, could you please change my coffee for me? This one is completely cold and a bit disgusting. I was silent for a few seconds and then called the waiter with a smile. Seeing that I seemed to relax, Chloe might think her threat had worked and looked at me triumphantly. Oh, you grew up together. Yes, from childhood to adulthood. How many times Xavier was beaten by his father, how many times he ran away from home, his first award, his first cry. I know all about it. She said this with a proud look on her face. I understood her underlying meaning. Who do you think you are? You're just a marriage partner pushed in halfway. Xavier doesn't like you. Of course you know. I wasn't flustered at all. His elder brother Sean, with a calm personality, has been a top student since childhood and is deeply liked by the old man. Xavier, on the other hand, has been wayward since childhood, a school bully, skipping classes and getting into fights, with poor grades. Comparing the two, you thought Sean had a better future and was more likely to inherit the family business, so you chose Sean. But, you didn't expect that although Sean had good grades and was devoted to scientific research and went abroad, he was not interested in the company at all. Instead, Xavier, who didn't like studying, went back home to inherit the family business after graduation and expanded the company to its current status. You regretted it, so you're pestering him in the name of looking for his elder brother. I picked up the coffee and took a sip. Do you want me to continue? I even got angry with myself as I was talking. Thinking of those diary entries written in the Chinese textbook, I felt sorry for Xavier. He must have seen all kinds of beautiful women by now. How could he still be hung up on her? It's just a first love complex. But she's using this as a means to take advantage of him. Taking advantage of someone's true feelings is truly a heinous crime. She immediately stopped crying, and her face even looked a bit distorted. Chloe, if you want to change your fate, first look in the mirror to see if you're cut out for it. You made the wrong choice from the start. It's too late to want to take it back now. After saying that, I didn't want to waste any more time with her. I stood up and wanted to leave. As a result, she stood up furiously, picked up a freshly served cup of coffee and splashed it on me. 23 The coffee wasn't very hot, but my hair was just done. In an instant, all the elegance, dignity, and upbringing in my mind flew to outer space. I was going to fight her to the death. I slapped her across the face. She lunged at me and grabbed my hair. I got into a scuffle with her. Half an hour later, I was sitting quietly in the police station. A few of my buttons had been torn off, and I'd lost one of my earrings. She was even worse. Her face was covered with the marks of my fingers. That fair little face had many marks. My newly done rhinestone nails weren't for nothing. The police called Xavier to come. I wasn't flustered at all. I'm going to the toilet. I smiled and asked the police for permission, looking relaxed and happy. Then when I walked into the toilet, closed the cubicle door, I couldn't help but growl softly. Damn it, when she pushed me, my waist hit the corner of the table. She also scratched my back a few times, and it was burning now. I was almost crying from the pain. What made me want to cry the most was that I wasn't her match. Although I didn't want to admit it, I actually lost the fight. It was so embarrassing. After growling in the toilet for about 2 minutes, I composed my expression and walked to the mirror to touch up my makeup. As someone who has always been strong-willed, I would never allow Xavier to see me like this. By the time I walked out, Xavier had already arrived. He was standing there, staring at me with a livid face. Fighting? He looked at me in disbelief. How could that be? My face twitched a bit. Just a little dispute. He looked at Chloe next to him, and then at me. A little dispute? I followed his gaze and saw that the nail marks on Chloe's face were red and swollen. I remembered that just now. It wasn't that bad, was it? There was a gloomy atmosphere around him. I lowered my head and didn't say anything. Selena, I told you those things hoping that we could be honest with each other, not for you to go and take it out on someone else. He suddenly yelled at me. Me? He actually yelled at me? She started at first. I was really angry. Her face is all swollen from being scratched. How am I supposed to explain it to my elder brother? He walked over and repeatedly checked my hands. Where are you hurt? Is it that he can't explain it to his elder brother, or is he just feeling sorry himself? He's trying to cover it up. None of your business. I was so angry. Thinking of his diary entries, I was even more furious. Yes, she's your first love. You keep her photo and write your feelings for her in the textbook. Now that she cries a little and sheds a couple of tears, she's in the right. You must be feeling sorry for her. Don't be so hypocritical with me, you. He was also really angry. You read my diary? I was just about to explain that he himself had let me look at it and that I found it by accident. What's more, I went to see Chloe for his sake, not wanting him to be taken advantage of again. Brother Xavier, don't quarrel because of me. Sister doesn't like me. I'll just leave. Chloe stood up shakily. She walked away crying. After taking a couple of steps, she fainted. Chloe. Xavier rushed forward in one stride to help her. I stood there, and my heart suddenly broke. He helped her up. Only then did he remember that I was standing there. He turned around again. Get in the car. I'll take you two to the hospital. No. You don't need to invest in my filming anymore. Just give her the Oscar for Best Actress. I'm not as good as her. I stood there, clenching my fists, not moving. Selena, what do you want me to do? Take your sweetheart to the hospital quickly. I'm afraid the wounds will heal if you're a bit late. He stared at me fixedly, and then, having no other choice, he put Chloe in the car and then turned around to hold my hand. Don't make a fuss. Go to the hospital to have a checkup. Don't leave any after effects. He lowered his voice, which was a compromise. I watched him being reluctant to part with Chloe and yet having to take care of me too. Suddenly, I felt it was so ridiculous. I'm not his unforgettable first love. He settled her down first and then remembered to hold my hand. Such kindness, Selena, don't need. I took a deep breath and forced a smile. Xavier, you know what? I think you're really pitiful. He couldn't be cruel to Chloe, which was being cruel to himself. He stood there, his lips trembling, too shocked to say a word. No, I'm fine. Sorry, I don't have time to be the third wheel. I've got a spa appointment. Goodbye. With that, I picked up my bag and turned to leave. 24 I packed my luggage and went straight back to my father's house. My mother asked me why I'd come back so suddenly. We had a falling out. I'm done with it. I locked myself in my room and refused to open the door no matter what. He didn't send me a single WeChat message or call me all night. I was scrolling through my phone nonstop by myself when I saw that post on Chloe's WeChat moments. Thank you for always being there. The attached picture was of him talking to a doctor. The moment I saw the picture, I really broke down. It must be because I was in so much pain that I started to cry. When Vivian called me, I was wailing so much that she couldn't make out a single word. Finally, Vivian came to my house and stayed with me for the night. So, what are you going to do now? I just stayed silent. You're not just going to let this go, are you? That little bitch Chloe really makes me angry. How dare she hit you? Vivian looked like she was ready to go to the hospital and take Chloe down. Forget it. I'm not crying because of her. I hugged my knees. You don't really like Xavier, do you? Although it wouldn't be strange if you did. You've always liked guys like him since you were little. Of course not. I vehemently denied it. But tears started to fall from my eyes. I cried under the covers for a good while. After a while, Vivian suddenly pulled up my quilt and said softly, Xavier is downstairs. Downstairs where? I was confused. Downstairs of your house. Vivian said as she looked out of the window. I just saw him. I don't even know when he got here. I stayed silent, not understanding what Xavier meant. Shouldn't we let him come up? Vivian asked me. No. I don't want to see him. I was so angry that I didn't want to hear anything. What if he's here to apologize? Xavier is such a big shot. It's already not easy for him to come and apologize. Too late. I walked to the window, closed it directly, and pulled the curtain. I want a divorce from him. She stroked my head and advised me not to be impulsive. You haven't even got any money from him. Are you just going to divorce like this? Once a man is out of the picture, there are plenty of other rich guys in the world. It's not like Xavier is the only rich one. Vivian was so shocked that her jaw dropped. She didn't dare to persuade me anymore and just huddled under the quilt to give me advice. Later, I fell asleep. In the middle of the night, I was woken up by the pain when Vivian was applying medicine on me. Where did you get the medicine? Xavier gave it to me. She pointed to the huge bag of medicine on the stool. He told me to make sure to apply it on you. Why did you listen to him? I'm really the unlucky one between you two. Vivian stopped talking and just gritted her teeth and silently applied the medicine on me. 25 early the next morning, Xavier knocked on the door. He hadn't left yet? I opened the door with a smile and invited him in to sit. He took out a document and handed it to me. I was startled. Sure enough, he also wanted a divorce from me. I was so angry. Didn't you like that courtyard house? I've bought it. You can go and choose the furniture when you have time. Looking at the floor plan, I couldn't help but waver for a second. But then I remembered the anger I felt yesterday, and my heart sank again. I also handed him a document with a smile. Thank you then. I also have a document here that needs Mr. Xie to sign. He took the divorce agreement and looked at it. His face immediately turned ugly. What do you mean? Nothing much. Just to fulfill you and your first love. I won't compete with her anymore. It's not like I'm unwanted. There are plenty of men in the world. He stood there, his face turning green with anger. Was it the one from last time? His voice was shaking a bit. None of your business. So, you're just going to abandon me after getting me? Have you been playing with me all this time? What did he mean by getting him? He's crazy. Sorry, if I go to the Civil Affairs Bureau now, I can still make it to my afternoon date. Mr. Xie, please. Are you sure about this? Yes, I am. He stared at me fixedly, sighed, and said, another day. I'm not free now. Then this afternoon. Not free this afternoon either. Then tomorrow. Not free tomorrow either. I was left speechless. Xavier, what do you mean? I'm going on a business trip to Europe to expand the market. I won't be free for the next few months. You. He ignored me and turned to leave. Xavier and I were getting a divorce, but we hadn't got the certificate changed yet. Both families knew about it. I didn't understand what he meant by being so busy that he couldn't even get the divorce certificate. I didn't care either, because Vivian and I had applied to study in the US together. Who needs men? Focus on our careers. There will be plenty of men in the future. I thought Vivian was right. So I was studying with her every day, filling out all kinds of forms. I never contacted Xavier again. It's just that recently, I hadn't been feeling well. Why are you vomiting so badly? Are you pregnant? Vivian reminded me. Only then did I suddenly remember that I hadn't had my period for 2 or 3 months. I'd been so busy arguing and getting a divorce recently, and my periods had always been irregular. I really had overlooked it. I went to the pharmacy and bought a pregnancy test strip. The moment 2 lines showed up, I was really shocked. Oh no. After thinking about it all night, I still decided to have the baby. Are you sure? How are you going to take care of the baby when you go to study there? I've seen other single moms doing just fine. I hugged her with a smile. Besides, I've got you, right? A modern woman doesn't need a man. So, while suffering from morning sickness, I was applying to schools. On the day I received the admission notice, I sold all the bags I'd bought. You're really willing to part with them? They're limited editions. I need the money for tuition, living expenses, and baby formula. Missy, these bags can't be eaten. I calculated with a calculator the money I got from selling my bags, necklaces, and diamond ring. It was over 5 million yuan. I was instantly happy. Your diamond ring was worth over 4 million? Xavier is really rich. It was an auction item. I thought he'd bought it from some street stall. An old antique. If I'd known it was that expensive, I should have been nice to him back then and asked him to buy me more of these old antiques. My parents knew I was getting a divorce. They nagged me for a few days about being ungrateful, and then they couldn't be bothered to care about me anymore. 27 I started my life as a pregnant student in the US. I often thought of Xavier. Every time I was vomiting until I cried. Every time I felt the baby move. Every night when I couldn't sleep because of the pain in my body. I would think in my heart that it would be nice if he were here. But he probably didn't want this baby. Thinking of this, I sighed. It seemed that I really liked him. That was really sad. Because he didn't like me, and we were divorced. When I was 9 months pregnant, I was walking on campus with a male classmate when I unexpectedly ran into Chloe. I was shocked. She was too. You're pregnant? She stared at me, looking me up and down at my belly. Xavier's? I saw the guy standing next to her looked familiar. Then I remembered it was Xavier's elder brother Sean. Was Chloe doing this on purpose? I steadied myself for 2 seconds and said with a smile, thanks to you, I divorced Xavier long ago. Have you lost your memory? Chloe quickly tightened her grip on Sean's sleeve. She was flustered. How can you talk nonsense? He just dropped me off at the hospital and left. Where did Xavier go after that? Forget it. It's all in the past. Let me introduce my new boyfriend. I hooked my arm around my foreign classmate and smiled brightly. Stephen, the baby's father. Chloe's face changed several times. Does he know? Sean, who had been standing there silently, asked calmly. He doesn't need to know. We're divorced. Why should I tell him about these things? If I remember correctly, you two are still legally married. Sean stared at my belly, hesitating to speak. Your brother is so busy with his business that he's been dragging me for years without coming back to sign the papers. I can't just wait for him forever. I was actually a bit flustered. I was afraid Sean would tell Xavier about this. I was really afraid that he would know I was pregnant with his child. He mentioned you when he called me the other day. What did he mention me for? A man I hadn't seen for over half a year. After saying this, Sean hesitated to speak again. He looked at me and then turned to leave. After they left, Stephen looked at me in confusion. What did you guys talk about? He asked me. I let out a sigh of relief in my heart. Fortunately, he didn't understand Chinese at all. Otherwise, the whole thing would have been exposed. They said you're really handsome and they'll introduce you to a girlfriend in the future. He was extremely happy all the way, pulling me to send me all his handsome photos so that I could use them to introduce him. He really liked Chinese girls. I cursed silently in my heart. How silly. That night, Xavier called me. This was the first time he'd contacted me in months. Where are you? America. On campus? No. He was silent for several seconds and then said in a low voice, I'm here on business. I'll be passing by your school. If it's convenient for you. I held my breath and said as calmly as possible, it's not convenient. Don't bother. My amniotic fluid had just broken. I was in so much pain that I could hardly bear it. I heard your new boyfriend is a student? What can he give you? He sounded really angry. I couldn't help but cry out in pain. Xavier on the other end of the phone was obviously stunned. What are you doing? His voice was shaking with anger. Can't you tell? I'm on a date. Go away. If I'd known giving birth was this painful, I wouldn't have had the baby. Xavier, that damn culprit. I wished I could tear him apart. And he was still asking me what I was doing. I was so angry. Selena, you? Before he could finish, I hung up the phone. I really couldn't bear it anymore. It hurt so much. The doctor told me to bear with it, saying that my cervix was only 2 centimeters dilated. I'd been in pain for half a day, and it was only 2 centimeters dilated? Vivian was by my side, holding my phone, looking at me anxiously. Really not going to tell him? I see you're in so much pain. I'm afraid. Tell him what? I was grimacing in pain. He sent you a WeChat message. I'll read it to you. So, while I was dizzy with pain, I listened to Vivian reading the WeChat message he sent me. Selena, we haven't completed the divorce procedures yet. You're having an affair during the marriage. If you get a divorce, you won't get a penny. What do you see in him? Not going to say anything, huh? Do you really think I can't find out where you are? I felt even more pain listening to it. My head hurt. He said he's coming to find you. He really seems to think you're with someone else. Vivian was reading the WeChat message and murmuring in my ear, don't care about him. After struggling for a long time, I still couldn't give birth. Finally, I was almost on the verge of death and had to be transferred for surgery. The moment my mother saw me, she almost fainted. Didn't you come here to study abroad? How come you already have a baby? Mom, I'm in pain. All right. Don't talk anymore. Save your strength. Mom and Dad will be waiting for you outside. I don't know how long the operation lasted. When I was pushed out of the operating room, it was already dark. When I woke up, my mom was holding the baby. My dad's face turned livid when he saw me, but when he looked at the baby, he beamed with joy. This grandson is so fair and clean. He looks really good. My mom brought the baby over for me to see. One look and you can tell he's from our Selena family. Look at this high forehead. He's going to be smart. My dad was grinning from ear to ear. I looked at the wrinkled little face and really couldn't see what was so good about it, mainly because after the anesthesia wore off, I was in so much pain that I couldn't be interested in anything. I thought having a baby would be easy. Once born, he'd start running around. After a few days of running, he'd be able to sleep, eat, and go to school by himself, and I wouldn't have to worry about him. Unexpectedly, it was completely the opposite. I was almost bitten to death while breastfeeding. He wakes up every 2 hours, eating, pooping, crying. It's like a never-ending cycle. I hardly slept a wink all night. This is no angel. He's a little devil. After staying in the confinement center for 3 days, I became depressed. During this period, I didn't answer Xavier's calls or reply to his WeChat messages. At 3 in the morning, I was woken up again by the baby's crying. I endured the intense pain and held him to coax him for half an hour, but he was still crying. I broke down. While the confinement nanny was coaxing the baby, I went to the toilet and then sat on the toilet seat, crying hysterically. I'm so useless. I can't be a good mom at all. I shouldn't have given birth to him on impulse. If he cries again, I'll jump off the building. The thought of never being able to take good care of the baby for the rest of my life makes me feel so desperate. I took out my phone and looked at Xavier's contact in the address book, just wanting to scold him. Just then, my phone suddenly rang. It was Xavier. With tears still on my cheeks, I answered his call. Selena. His voice was a bit hoarse. It sounded like he was drunk. See, I'm struggling to take care of the baby, while he's out partying. I really brought this upon myself. Speak. I held back my temper. Is he with you? Me? What kind of drunken nonsense is he spouting now? It's none of your business. We're already divorced. I reminded him that I didn't sign the papers. He sounded really angry. Do you think I can't live without you? It doesn't matter anymore. He was silent for a long while. I thought he would just hang up the phone. But then his voice choked up as he said, "Can we not get divorced? I'll buy you whatever you want, okay? Houses, bags, I'll buy them all for you. Don't get divorced. Even if you say it 100 times, I still won't sign." He rambled on for a long while. I was really shocked. He doesn't want a divorce? Wasn't he the one who wanted to be with his first love all day long? Now he's coming to pester me. What's going on? Besides, I'm so broken down right now that I don't even want to deal with his romantic affairs. Are you done? If you are, I'm hanging up. What do I have to do to get you to talk to me? He was really drunk. I'd never seen him drunk before. I didn't expect him to be so clingy. It's not that I don't want to talk to you. I just don't have time right now. The confinement nanny had already come to the door 3 times. That little devil, with his mouth open, is either eating or crying. What on earth are you doing? Why won't you talk to me? Is it that you'll only talk to me if I call you sister? I gasped. What kind of trauma did he go through? His personality has completely changed. In the past, it would have been good enough if he didn't make me call him daddy. There was no way he'd call me sister. No, Xavier, calm down. I really don't have time. Sister. Sister. I suddenly felt a tingle all over my body. What on earth is wrong with him? Just then, the baby at the door couldn't take it anymore and exploded his little universe again, crying at the top of his lungs. Suddenly, it was quiet on the other end of the phone. You have a baby? My heart skipped a beat. Yes, I'm in confinement. Is there anything else, Mr. Xia? He didn't say anything. He didn't say another word until I hung up the phone. After hanging up the phone, I went to hold the baby with a headache. After taking turns with the confinement nanny to coax the baby to sleep, we finally managed to calm him down just before dawn. After the baby fell asleep, I finally managed to get some sleep too. Even in that short while, I had a dream. In the dream, when I opened my eyes, I found the baby wasn't on the bed. There was his little quilt on the windowsill. I crawled over and saw him lying in the flower bed downstairs. I ran down at a sprinting speed, picked him up. His hands and feet were cold, and he had no breath. The moment I stood on the rooftop, I was suddenly shaken awake. Selena, he's here. As soon as I opened my eyes, I saw my mom. Who? Little Xia. Xavier? I was stunned. I grabbed my mom and asked, "What's he doing here?" I admit I was nervous. And I'd just had a nightmare, with tears still on my face. It's been 5 days since I was discharged from the hospital. I haven't taken a bath or washed my hair. I'm wearing pajamas and look a mess. I definitely don't want him to see me like this. Be honest. Is this baby his? My mom asked me in a low voice. Yes. I finally admitted it. So please make him leave. What if he tries to fight me for custody? Are you stupid? Do you think you can take care of the baby all by yourself? The confinement nanny said you hardly slept last night. Mom feels sorry for you too. Raising a child takes 2 people. He's come all this way. It seems he can't let you go either. You can't be stubborn all your life. No matter what happens in the future, you've already had this baby. Why should he get away without having a baby or taking care of one? My mom tried to persuade me earnestly. But I don't think it's reliable. Xavier, a young master who's never even set foot in the kitchen. Let him take care of the baby? I can't even imagine it. The next second, there was a knock on the door. It's me. May I come in? It was Xavier. My mom gave me a look, signaling me to talk to him nicely. I didn't want to listen. When Xavier came in, he looked really shocked. He just stood there, looking like he was still drunk. See, I told you I was busy. Anyway, things are already like this. I stopped struggling and just gave up. Whose baby is this? He walked closer, reached out and pulled back a corner of the baby's little quilt, and stared at it for a long time. Anyway, it's not yours. I turned my face away, not wanting to talk to him. All the pain I'm suffering today is because of him. How dare he ask me that? Not mine? He seemed to be suppressing some emotion as he carefully covered the baby with the quilt. If I'm not wrong, when you got pregnant, you hadn't asked for a divorce yet. So what? Can't I go out and find someone else? You can, why can't I? I looked up at him. A flash of emotion passed through his eyes. After a few seconds of hesitation, he suddenly sat down beside me. I could clearly smell the alcohol on him. How much had he drunk? Your due date was June 6th. The week you got pregnant, you were at the hotel where I was on a business trip. That night you were in a hurry. I didn't. How long do you want to keep lying to me? My heart skipped a beat. Isn't he drunk? Why is his head so clear? The baby is mine, Xavier. Don't you dare fight me for custody. I stated directly. He looked at me and smiled, with a few tears in his eyes. Who wants to fight you for it? I let out a sigh of relief. I'm not leaving. I'll ask the driver to bring my things over later. This is my home. Is he going to freeload here? In your dreams. I really didn't know he could be this thick-skinned. He reached out and touched my head. I'll go wash up first. I smell of alcohol. May I use the bathroom? As he said that, he took off his tie and went to take a bath. I was stunned. 10 minutes later, he came out wearing my bathrobe. Your hair is such a mess, and you haven't washed your face. This is really not like you. He said as he took a towel and came over to wipe my face. Whether it's like me or not, don't touch me. I dodged him. However, he pulled me over forcefully and gave me an annoyed look. What do you take me for? You've just had a baby. Even if I were a brute, I wouldn't do anything like that now. You. I was actually left speechless. When he was about to comb my hair again, I refused immediately, but he insisted. I sighed. It's really dirty. I haven't washed my hair for a week. It's greasy and tangled. To be honest, I even dislike myself. It's not dirty. He said it so seriously that I almost believed him. Finally, after combing my hair for me, he went to the toilet. If it's not dirty, why are you washing your hands? See, he still dislikes me. It's not that I dislike you being dirty. I'm going to hold the baby. He pointed helplessly at the little devil who had just opened his eyes beside us. The little devil seemed to be particularly curious about this drunk guy. He stopped crying and making noise, just staring at him with wide eyes. Baby, I'm your daddy. He bent down and picked up the baby gently. Who admit that? I was really impressed by him. He admit. He pointed at the baby in his arms with a smile. He's smiling. I looked at the little devil who had been crying with a red face just dozens of minutes ago. Now his eyes were curved with laughter in his arms. I felt this scene was both heartwarming and annoying. Sure enough, men are unreliable. He's so young, yet he already knows to side with this scoundrel of a man. They're practically in cahoots. Although I was angry in my heart, when I saw the baby smiling, I couldn't help but cry. Xavier was still playing with the baby at first. When he saw me crying, he suddenly panicked. What's wrong? He held the baby in one arm and moved closer to me, asking me in a low voice. Nothing. I didn't even know why I was crying. Probably because being pregnant was so uncomfortable, giving birth was so painful, taking care of the baby is so difficult. However, when he came, the baby suddenly became obedient. It was like a beam of sunlight suddenly shining into a desperate life. It was too dazzling, so I cried. Nothing? Then why are you crying? He was still asking. It's my NetEase cloud music time. Can't I? I pulled up the quilt and hid inside, sobbing. There was silence outside the quilt for a while. Then the confinement nanny came in and took the baby out. I thought he had left too. When I pulled back the quilt, I saw him. He was sitting quietly by the bed, staring at me intently. So why didn't you tell me earlier? Tell you what? Wait for you to ask me to abort the baby. I retorted. His face suddenly turned ugly. Is that what you think of me? Do you think I, Xavier, would ask my woman to get rid of the baby? You have so many women. If you want a baby, there are plenty of people willing to have one for you. His face looked even worse. After a few seconds of hesitation, he said in a low voice, "There has been no one else except you." No one else? I was really shocked. Recalling that night, his performance was so good that I thought he was experienced. Who are you kidding? He lowered his head to look at me and said in a low voice, "Have you no conscience?" That night, I was in so much pain that I couldn't sleep. My heart skipped a beat. I almost believed him. Couldn't sleep, so he simply dragged me to stay up with him? Xavier, have you no shame? Sometimes I don't need it. He cupped my face and bent down to kiss me. I was caught off guard by his sudden kiss. His hands held me tightly in his arms as he kissed me gently. It's my fault. I'm sorry I came too late. He held me and comforted me over and over again. I was actually indulging in his tenderness. I had promised myself not to pay attention to him, but I forgot all about it. It seemed that everything was falling apart, out of control. Xavier stayed with me. Every day, he changed the baby's diapers, coaxed the baby to sleep, and after that, he came to talk to me. However, I was very conflicted. My mom advised me, now Xavier doesn't even go to the company. He's concentrating on staying with you and taking care of the baby. Your hard times are finally over. It's obvious that he still likes you. Try getting along with him again. No matter how much she persuaded me, there was always a knot in my heart. One moment, I was looking forward to the days with him here. The next moment, I was worried that it was just an illusion. Maybe he would leave as soon as someone sent him a text message. So I was always cold towards him. When the confinement nanny brought the baby over, Xavier took the baby again. Go and make some formula milk. Let Selena have more rest. Breastfeeding is good for the baby. Yes, the baby's immunity will be better. My mom and the confinement nanny said at the same time. She's not in a good state now and needs more rest. He still insisted. The baby isn't everything. She's more important. He shut the confinement nanny and my mom outside the door and took care of me and the baby by himself. I watched him change the diapers skillfully, then go to make the formula milk, and after that, coax the baby and feed him. From being clumsy at the beginning to being proficient now. After coaxing the baby, he came over to massage my legs and asked me to move around more. Aren't you tired? I asked him. I didn't know where he got the energy. Actually, he had hardly slept this week either. His dark circles were getting more and more obvious. Not tired. He continued to massage me. I'm tired. He paused. If you're tired, rest. I'll be here. What's wrong? He panicked a bit when he saw me crying for no reason. I don't understand why I had to have a baby. I lay there, crying calmly. He bent down and held me for a long time. It's my fault. Let's not have any more babies in the future, okay? In the future? What future is there? I seemed to have postpartum depression. Later, I heard from my mom that Chloe had completely broken up with Sean because Sean got engaged and the bride wasn't her. His elder brother is really cruel. The girl went all the way there to study, but he got engaged to someone else. Xavier is more reliable. These days, I've seen that he does everything for the baby and you himself. He's really being nice to you. I was filled with worry. Reliable? What reliable? Since Chloe has no chance with Sean anymore, I'm again in the fear that she might come back to Xavier. Xavier was busy making formula milk. I held the baby, but as soon as he was in my arms, he started crying loudly and couldn't be coaxed no matter what. I suddenly felt so sad. Take the baby away. I won't fight with you for him. You take better care of him than I do. He doesn't even want breast milk anymore. It seems I'm useless. He stared at me without speaking, just continuing to massage me to make me relax. Have a good rest, dear. Don't overthink. I'm serious. Anyway, since Chloe has finally broken up with your brother, you should have what you've been waiting for. He froze there. Don't mention others. It's none of my business. Don't worry about me. What if I'm like this for the rest of my life? What if I can't get better? I sighed. They say it's hard to recover from postpartum depression, and my emotions are easily out of control. I don't know how to get better or if I can get better. Why do you keep pushing me away? But suddenly, his emotions exploded. He, who had always been calm and self-controlled, actually had red eyes. I don't want to be pitied by anyone. I can live a good life on my own. Of course you can live a good life. He was tidying up my clothes while muttering, you can turn your back on me the day after getting me, asking me for things. If I don't give them, you'll ignore me. You can go without seeing me for 10 days or half a month. When you come to me, it's just for money. You can be pregnant with my baby, laughing and playing with other men, making me stay awake all night long. See, you really can live a good life on your own. Only I'm not having a good life. I fly to the US once a week just to secretly see you once and inquire about your news. Every time I hear, it's that you're getting along well with other guys. What am I? Selena, tell me, what am I? He rambled on with a lot of complaints and finally sat on the bed, crying silently. I was stunned. Don't you like her? I was crying too. I was pregnant and fought with her. I was in so much pain that day. What did you do? You took her to the hospital. Yes, I thought you were greedy for money. You think I like your money. I sniffed. I even think I'm stupid. Loving money so much, yet I divorced you, who is so rich. Am I crazy? Sorry. I admit that I used to have feelings for her, but that was in high school. I couldn't tell whether I really liked her or it was just a habit. But after meeting you, I couldn't have anyone else in my heart. But every time you sweet-talked me and then asked me to buy things, I couldn't tell whether you really loved me or just regarded me as a tool. I was so angry that I did a lot of things that hurt you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Don't cry. It breaks my heart to see you crying. He kissed me for a long, long time. It was only when the baby beside us woke up and started crying loudly that he reluctantly let me go and picked up the baby to coax him. Let's be good to each other from now on, okay? My heart was beating fast and my mind was in a mess. Later, he continued to take care of me and the baby here. At night, he slept with me, holding the baby in one arm and holding my hand with the other. A month passed like this. My condition gradually improved. The baby didn't cry as much and wasn't as prone to getting sick either. Suddenly, life got better. After the confinement period, he pushed the baby in the stroller and took me for walks in the park every day, chatting with me a lot. He seemed never to get tired. It would be a lie to say I wasn't touched. However, one day when we were walking in the park, we ran into Chloe. Rather than saying we ran into her, it was more like Chloe was waiting for us there. At that moment, I was really annoyed, but I just wanted to leave with the baby. Go ahead and talk. But Xavier held my hand and wouldn't let me go. Why are you leaving alone? The baby is too chubby. You won't be able to carry him later. He's only about 10 pounds. He was really underestimating me. You just got out of confinement. The doctor said you shouldn't exert yourself. He said as he picked up the baby and coaxed him. Brother Xavier. Chloe was so shocked that her jaw dropped, and her face looked really ugly. Your brother got engaged to someone else. Tears started to fall as she said that. Yeah, I know. Xavier's face was calm. I felt really awkward standing there. Could you? No. Xavier flatly refused her. Sorry, I have to take care of the baby. I have nothing else to do. Don't come to me again in the future. Why? Chloe's face turned green. Are you going to ignore me too? Xavier gave her a cold look. Before, you were my brother's girlfriend. I helped you for my brother's sake. Now that you're not anymore, why should I help you? His tone was really cold. I saw that Chloe was so angry that she could hardly stand steadily. Brother Xavier. She was crying so hard that she could hardly catch her breath. I almost couldn't bear to watch. Don't call me that anymore in the future. Xavier gave her a cold look. Why? My wife doesn't like it. he said as he put his arm around me. Me. He's really good at shifting the blame. Without giving Chloe any more time, Xavier put his arm around me and walked away with the baby. Actually, Chloe was really pitiful. She had been chasing Sean for so many years, even following him to the US, but in the end, he still turned around and married someone else. You don't have to act in front of me. After all, you two know each other. I sighed as I looked at Xavier. It's not an act. I'm henpecked. He looked lazy. Nonsense. When did I ever control you? I realized what I'd said after I finished speaking. When did I say I'd remarry you? Still not remarrying? He sighed. Can't I just do whatever you say? No. Then don't go back on your word. How funny. That's impossible. Selena, will never admit defeat. 31 5 months later. Xavier called to say that he was out on business and would be back later. Fine, be back later then. I also had classes. When I got home after class, my mom told me that she had taken the baby to her place. Why didn't you tell me earlier? It was a last-minute decision. You just take a good rest for 2 days. What rest? I don't need to rest. As soon as I turned on the light, I saw roses all over the doorway. I had a hunch, and suddenly my heart started beating faster. Walking along the roses, I came to the bedroom. In the bedroom, Xavier was wearing a bathrobe. It seemed that he had just taken a bath, and his hair was still dripping. He was sitting casually on the sofa in the bedroom. What are you doing? He gave me a lazy look. Is it that hard to guess? It's my birthday today. Ah? Your birthday? I really forgot. Should I order a cake? You've forgotten. What's the point of ordering a cake? I'll definitely remember next time. I started making empty promises to him. Yeah, and then? He walked slowly towards me, looking like he was waiting for me to continue making things up. Cook a bowl of longevity noodles for you? I took 2 steps back timidly. Why are you backing away? He looked at me amusedly. I'm not backing away. It's just that. Because we were so close, I could clearly see his jawline, and below that was his Adam's apple, and further down. I couldn't help but swallow. Haven't cooked the noodles for me yet, and you're already hungry yourself? He looked at me amusedly. No. I was so scared that I took another step back. Actually, in these past 6 months, except for the occasional kisses, we hadn't done anything else. Even when we slept together, we were so exhausted by the baby that we didn't want to do anything at all. However, at this moment, with the atmosphere so charged with ambiguity, my heart started beating wildly. Really? He took my hand and placed it on his abs. Doesn't seem like it. I really wanted to stay calm. Don't hold back. He lowered his head to look at me. You know, I've always obeyed you unconditionally, sister. That one word, sister, made my blood rush to my head. I could hardly think straight. Xavier, didn't you say I was only a few days older than you? I like it this way. All right, all my defenses crumbled. Facing a good-looking man who was also my husband, it would be a waste not to take advantage of this. I summoned up my courage and kissed him on the cheek. He smiled with satisfaction. Do you like it when I call you that? He lowered his head to kiss me. Could you please stop talking? My heart was beating too fast. Okay, I'll listen to sister. He laughed heartily. I was going crazy. Midway, he turned his face away. Will you take responsibility tomorrow morning? Me. Of course. I was already carried away. I'd agree to anything he said. Then remarry me? This scoundrel of a man was actually using such a trick to force me to give in. Looking at his 8-pack abs, I nodded with tears in my eyes. This time, he didn't wait any longer and kissed me again, taking the initiative. The next morning, I couldn't get up at all. He got up early, though, and played a recording for me. You said it last night. No backing out. Listening to my guilty evidence on the recording, I cursed myself for being so careless and getting tricked. Xavier, you. Last night you were still calling me husband. Now you wake up and want to renege. I blushed with shame. Since that's the case, I don't mind offering myself to you again, countless times. Enough. Stop talking. He looked at me meaningfully. You want me to be mute? Sister, your taste is really unique. Xavier. Call me husband. Husband. Yeah, baby. He lowered his head to kiss me. I love you. So the getting up time was postponed again and again until my mom came back with the baby in the afternoon. During dinner, my mom asked me quietly, "Did you two remarry?" Not really. I wasn't very confident. Right. You went through pregnancy and childbirth all by yourself. It was so hard. You can't forgive him easily. My mom was indignant. Just then, Xavier glanced over here, and my mom quickly shut up. He looked at me thoughtfully and walked over the next second. Mom, about that limited edition Hermes you mentioned last time, I asked someone to buy it for you. It'll be delivered this afternoon? Hey, my son-in-law is really nice. My mom was beaming with joy then. Mom, about me and Selena. Xavier hinted. Well, Selena, your husband works so hard to earn money. Don't make trouble. About your remarriage, well, actually you never really divorced. Let's not talk about it anymore. Me. Mom, didn't you just say? I was suddenly left alone. Did I say anything just now? No. My mom betrayed me in a second. Xavier, will that bag arrive this afternoon? I'll have it delivered to you right now. Xavier said as he looked at me triumphantly. My mom couldn't care less about me and rushed out to wait. Xavier walked over, put his arm around my waist, and lowered his head, resting his chin on my forehead. Still going to resist? All you know is to bribe my mom with money. Why don't you bribe me? I was really speechless. Do I need money to bribe you? He looked at me with a smile. Isn't giving myself to you enough? Not enough. I want money. Are you silly? Once you have me, won't all my money be yours? Really? When have I ever lied to you? You've lied to me plenty of times. Of course, except last night. He still had the nerve. Last night, he told me he'd go to sleep right away at 1 o'clock. At 3 o'clock, it was still the same line, without even changing a word. How could that be called lying last night? It was a white lie. Get lost. Sister. Get lost. Don't call me sister. You're really annoying. When are you going on a business trip? I was so pestered by him that I couldn't take it anymore. You want me to go on a business trip? What you mean? He was unhappy again. To work hard and earn money to support the baby. What else could it mean? No need. We can afford 10 more kids. He's really rich and bold. 2 years later, I rushed into his office and threw a pregnancy test stick on his desk. Xavier, how do you explain this? Didn't you say no more kids? His face was solemn. His slender fingers were pinching the pregnancy test stick, looking thoughtful. On your birthday? He asked me back. How should I know? I was speechless. As a gift, I didn't do anything. He smiled helplessly. My heart skipped a beat. This man is really shameless. Anyway, I don't want to have any more kids. He looked up and coaxed me with a smile. How about I give you 10 kids in the next life, wife? I don't believe him for a second. I was determined not to have any more kids, but this scoundrel of a man bought me bags and a villa at night and sweet-talked me all night long. I didn't want to have kids either, but he gave me so much. All right, I'll have one last kid then. Half a month later, I wasn't crazy, but someone else was. Selena, no more third kids. I don't want to be a widower for another year. He was clinging to the door, looking pitiful. You asked for it. I was about to close the door angrily. He stretched out one hand again, stubbornly blocking the door. Can't I even sleep next to you without doing anything? No. You'll disturb my sleep. He got a bit angry. Not letting your husband sleep in the bedroom. This is a new form of domestic violence. Then do you want to have a third kid? I teased him. Don't even think about it. He looked resentful and carried the quilt to the guest room. I heard that some people went to get sterilized the next day. Serves them right. Selena, I'm taking a bath. Can't you do this at another time? I'm not here to peek at you. I really feel sick. Are you sure? You want to come in now? Sure. Then the door opened.